Hello, muscle children. My name is Justin Gosselin, strength and conditioning specialist and founder of GymSpot, world's best gym locator. This is the first video in our Applied Biomechanics course. This is an often misunderstood and therefore misrepresented subject, usually by people who want to sell you something. Some new piece of training equipment, maybe their coaching services, whatever it is, there's usually a lot of circular logic and big words involved. You will find none of that here. Just straightforward information from reliable textbooks and research reviews. So, without further ado, what the hell is biomechanics anyway? Quite simply, biomechanics is the physics of motion performed by an organism. Bio is the organism part, and mechanics is the physics part. Now, within mechanics, an object can be said to be static if it's at rest or continually moving. That is, the delta or change is zero. The object can be considered dynamic if it is changing velocity or direction. And the tools we use to further describe these states are called kinetics, which are forces that change the motion of a thing. Think acceleration, change in direction. And the second is kinematics, which is basically a description of the motion of a thing relative to three-dimensional space or time without really considering what forces caused it. So let's use a basketball player tearing his ACL as an example. How would we consider this injury? In kinetic terms, we would want to think about the forces involved. How much force was being absorbed by the ACL? What forces make that possible in the first place? From a kinematic perspective, we might ask, well, how fast was the athlete moving at the moment of injury? Was the maneuver too quick? Things like that. Biomechanics can help us answer all of those questions so we can get bigger, stronger, faster, and reduce injury rates much more efficiently. So while I know that sounds super interesting by itself, things like exercise physiology, motor control, ergonomics are all also really important when understanding the context of biomechanics. In other words, circumstances matter. And while I love the nitty-gritty science stuff, it would be a mistake for anyone to analyze any sport event in isolation without considering things like temperature, flooring, crowd, pre-game meal. I mean, it seems like there are an infinite amount of confounding variables on the exercise physiology end. Now, in terms of motor control, we typically talk about two systems that govern movement. Open loop movements are ones that happen so fast your brain doesn't really have time to react. Closed loop movements are ones that can be changed mid-performance based on new information that your brain is receiving from your senses. It's the difference between hitting a fastball at 100 miles per hour versus catching a ball in the outfield that you see coming from 300 feet away. And on top of motor control, there's motor development, which is frankly a seemingly never-ending field of study that relies heavily on neuroscience, which we aren't close to having a complete picture of, by the way. But in terms of a biomechanics discussion, understanding growth and puberty in youth athletes, limb length, muscle to fat ratios, all of that will absolutely change the kinetics and kinematics of skills for any athlete over time. And it's not just your body that changes over time. Our brains have neuroplasticity. That is, the actual architecture of your brain changes based on sensory input. That's where adages like perfect practice make perfect or excellence is a habit come from. And given that, listening to sad music when you're already sad might hit different in the moment, but the only thing it's actually good for is probably perpetuating more sadness in the first place. But I digress. And so the last mini topic we'll hit today is ergonomics, or how humans interact with machines. Now, in the fitness world, everybody seems to have their own opinion on machines versus free weights versus bodyweight exercises. Here at GymSpot, we maintain a right tool for the right job policy. So make sure you're actually addressing your needs, which is difficult enough on its own, and then use whatever tool that actually solves that problem. In general, though, there are kind of four main ways that we assess human-machine systems, and they were described by Bridger in 2003. They are, does the design of this human-machine interface reduce common human error? Can you manipulate the environment to enhance safety? Should you change the task itself to make it more user-friendly? And can the organization of the work be better fit to both the psychology and the social needs of the user? Now, while these questions might be a little vague or esoteric for an athlete's purposes, they can be good places to start when thinking about one tool versus another in the gym. For example, I have deadlifted 800 pounds and have decently sized traps as a result. And if I want to continue building my traps, is further heavy, grueling work really the best course of action? And this is where I start to go through the thought process. So maybe instead I should focus on the extreme ends of range of motion of the muscle, focusing on a big old stretch and a nice tight contraction. Considering I'm already doing a lot of like heavy isometric stuff, that would provide a more well-rounded stimulus. And then I think, well, free weights have kind of a specific strength curve, and at a weight that is actually stimulating for my traps, I might run the risk of my form becoming sloppy. But you know what doesn't have a traditional strength curve? Cable machines. And maybe doing one trap at a time might further reduce the demand on my core because I'm already doing all this other core intensive stuff. So we might conclude that like a unilateral single side cable shrug might be very effective for my use case. But that's my use case. Those are my circumstances. But like a brand new 150-pound lifter, they don't have to do all that. Just getting under a barbell, squatting, deadlifting, having to support those loads will build their traps just fine with, minimal extra direct trap work needed. So that's going to be it for today's intro to biomechanics video. Remember guys, I try really hard to make these videos informative and able to stand by themselves, but they are also being made in a sensible order that resembles a curriculum. That way you can get a more thorough education than if you just keep watching random videos by themselves. So if you enjoyed this video, please like it, share it, and subscribe for new videos coming every week. Thanks, guys. If you need to find a place to train, go to gymspot.fit. Tell us where you are, what you're looking for, and we'll take care of the rest. GymSpot, the world's best gym locator.